The awakening. A sharp, cold feeling ran through his body. His skin prickled. His head ached. He tried to open his eyes, but the bright white light made them burn. Everything felt strange, too clean, too quiet. He took a deep breath. The air smelled different, like metal and chemicals. His fingers twitched. His body felt weak, but he was awake. Slowly, he blinked and looked around. He was lying on a hard metallic bed. The walls were smooth and silver, glowing faintly with blue light. Strange machines surrounded him, blinking and beeping. Long tubes ran from the ceiling, filled with glowing green liquid. The floor was cold against his bare feet. Then he noticed something shocking. His pants were gone. His heart pounded. He was wearing a strange, thin hospital gown. His arms were covered in small, circular marks, like injections, like experiments. What the hell? His voice was dry and weak. Panic crawled up his throat. He tried to sit up, but his muscles ached. His mind raced. Where was he? How did he get here? The last thing he remembered was nothing. That was the worst part. His memory was empty. A big dark hole where his past should be. Who was he? A mechanical whirring sound broke the silence. He turned his head fast, too fast. His vision blurred, but he saw something moving. A small floating machine hovered near the ceiling. It had a round silver body with a glowing blue eye in the center. It made a soft humming sound as it scanned him. "Patient 42 is awake," a robotic voice said. He froze. Patient 42. Who was patient 41? And 40? And how many others? Before he could think, the machine beeped loudly and zipped toward the door. The metal door slid open with a soft hiss, and a tall figure stepped inside. He gasped. The creature was huge, at least 7 feet tall, with dark green, scaly skin. Its long, sharp claws tapped against a glass tablet. It wore a long, white coat, just like a doctor. But this wasn't a human doctor. The creature tilted its head, watching him with bright golden eyes. Then it spoke, in perfect English. "Ah, you're finally awake." His stomach twisted. He had so many questions, but the words wouldn't come out. He clenched the thin fabric of his hospital gown, suddenly feeling more exposed than ever. The alien doctor stepped closer, its claws clicking against the tablet. "You were unconscious for 3 cycles. We were beginning to worry." His throat felt dry. He forced himself to speak. "Where am I?" The doctor tapped on the glass tablet. "You are in a medical facility. You were found drifting in space, unconscious. We saved you." Drifting in space. His mind struggled to process the words. That didn't make sense. He wasn't an astronaut. He wasn't supposed to be in space. Was he? The doctor observed him, eyes unblinking. "Do you remember how you got here?" He opened his mouth, closed it, shook his head. The doctor nodded, as if it expected that answer. "Memory loss is common in cases like yours. Your body is still adjusting." Adjusting to what? He gritted his teeth. "And where are my damn pants?" The doctor blinked. A deep, rumbling sound came from its chest. Was that laughter? It typed something on the tablet. "Clothing was removed for medical examination. It will be returned once we finish our tests." Tests. His muscles tensed. What kind of tests? The doctor ignored his question. It turned and gestured toward the machines. The floating robot returned, scanning him again. The beeping grew louder. Something wasn't right. He felt like a lab rat. His fingers curled into fists. His instincts screamed at him. Run. Now. But where? The door was still open. Outside, he saw a long, metallic hallway stretching into the distance. More doors lined the walls. Were there other people in here? Other patients? The doctor noticed his gaze. "There is nothing to fear. You are in good hands." He didn't believe that for a second. The machine beeped again. The doctor checked the screen and nodded. Your body is strong. Healing quickly. Fascinating. Fascinating. He didn't like the way it said that. Like he was special. Like he was something more than human. His chest tightened. He had to get out of here. The doctor turned away for a moment, typing on the tablet. That was his chance. With all the strength he had left, he moved. He swung his legs over the bed, wincing at the pain, and ran. The doctor shouted something, but he didn't stop. He bolted through the door, into the hallway. His bare feet slapped against the cold metal floor. The hallway stretched ahead, but where could he go? A siren blared. Red lights flashed. The robotic voice echoed from the walls. Patient 42 is attempting to escape. Lockdown initiated. His heart pounded. He had to move. Fast. A door ahead slid open. Someone, or something, was coming through. He skidded to a stop. His breath caught in his throat. It wasn't another alien. It was a human. Or at least, it looked human. But something was wrong. The figure stepped forward, eyes glowing faintly blue. Its skin was too smooth, its movements too perfect. And when it spoke, its voice sent chills down his spine. Go back to your bed, it said. He swallowed hard. What the hell was this place? The experiment. Pain throbbed through his legs, but he forced himself to stand. His breath came in sharp gasps. The glowing-eyed figure in front of him didn't move. It just stared. The way it stood, the way it didn't blink, it wasn't natural. He took a slow step backward, his bare feet cold against the metallic floor. The figure tilted its head. Return to your bed, it repeated. Its voice was flat. Empty. He didn't move. The sirens still blared. Red warning lights flashed across the walls. Heavy metal doors slammed shut in the distance. They were sealing the exits. He had to think fast. His eyes darted around, searching for anything useful. Then he saw it. One of the floating machines hovering near the ceiling. Its round silver body flickered with blue lights. The same type of machine that scanned him earlier. A desperate idea formed in his mind. He lunged. With all his strength, he grabbed the floating robot and yanked it down. It wasn't heavy, but it buzzed angrily, twisting in his grip. The glowing-eyed figure reacted fast. Too fast. It lunged at him. He threw the robot straight at its face. The machine exploded in sparks as it crashed into the figure. Electricity arced across its skin. The figure convulsed, twitching violently, before collapsing to the ground. Smoke rose from its body. The smell of burning plastic filled the air. He didn't wait to see if it would get back up. He ran. His legs burned. His lungs ached. But he pushed forward, deeper into the strange hallway. The sirens kept screaming. But he barely heard them. His mind was on one thing: getting out. Then, suddenly, the floor vanished. 1 second, he was running. The next, he was falling. Darkness swallowed him as he plunged through an invisible trapdoor. He hit the ground hard, the air knocking from his lungs. Pain shot up his spine. He groaned, rolling onto his side. Where was he now? It was dim. The walls here weren't clean and smooth like before. They were rough. Old metal. Rusted pipes. A deeper part of the facility. A voice spoke from the darkness. You shouldn't be here. His blood ran cold. He turned, his body tense. In the shadows, a figure moved. It stepped forward. It was another human. At least, it used to be. The man's face was pale, his skin stretched tight over sharp bones. His eyes were dark, sunken. Strange blue veins ran along his arms. His fingernails were too long. He wasn't alone. More figures stepped out of the shadows. 5, 10, 20. All human. All wrong. Their bodies twitched. Their eyes glowed faintly, just like the one he had knocked out upstairs. His stomach twisted. This wasn't a hospital. It was a lab. They weren't healing people. They were changing them. A woman stepped forward, her voice weak. "You need to run before they find you." His throat was dry. He had too many questions. "What happened to you?" The woman hesitated. Then she pulled up her sleeve. His breath caught in his chest. A barcode was burned into her skin. Patient 17. "We were part of the first test group," she whispered. "They took us, experimented on us, changed us." His hands clenched into fists. He was next. A loud hiss filled the air. The ceiling above them opened. Bright white light poured down. Something was coming. The other test subjects screamed. Some ran. Some hid. He didn't move. A dark shape dropped into the room. It wasn't an alien. It wasn't human. It was something in between. 7 feet tall. Muscular. A monstrous blend of flesh and metal. It turned its head, locking onto him. Its glowing eyes narrowed. And then it charged. The escape plan. The monster charged. Its footsteps shook the floor. Heavy. Powerful. Unstoppable. He barely had time to react. His body screamed at him to move. He dove to the side as the creature's massive fist slammed into the ground, leaving a deep dent in the metal floor. Sparks flew. The other test subjects scattered, vanishing into the shadows. He hit the ground hard, rolling over sharp debris. Pain shot up his arm, but he forced himself to his feet. There was no time for pain. The monster turned. It was faster than it should be. Its mechanical joints hissed, glowing with faint blue energy. It wasn't just part machine. It was built to hunt. And he was the prey. His mind raced. "I can't fight this thing. I need to run. I need a plan." He darted toward the nearest corridor, but the creature was already moving. Its speed was terrifying. Too fast for something that big. His heart pounded. Think. His eyes flicked to the walls. Pipes. Thick, rusted, pressurized pipes. A memory surfaced. Basic science. Pressurized pipes meant. His fingers tightened into fists. A weapon. He grabbed a loose piece of metal from the ground and sprinted toward the pipes. The monster lunged, swiping at him with inhuman strength. He ducked. Barely. The air whistled past his head. With everything he had, he swung the metal bar into the largest pipe. Boom! The pipe exploded. A violent blast of steam burst out, filling the corridor with blinding white fog. The heat was unbearable. The monster roared, staggering back, its mechanical parts hissing and sparking. Now was his chance. He ran, faster than he ever had before. Through the steam, through the darkness, through the maze of metal and pipes, deeper into the unknown. Behind him, the creature growled. It was still coming. His lungs burned. His muscles screamed. But he pushed forward. Then, a light. A flickering green glow ahead. A door. An exit. He threw himself at it. His fingers smashed against the control panel. Locked. No, no, no. A voice behind him. Soft. Female. Use this. He spun around. The woman from before. Patient 17. She was standing in the shadows, holding something small. A keycard. He didn't question it. He grabbed it and swiped it against the panel. The door hissed open. Freedom. He turned back to the woman. Come with me. She shook her head. I can't. I won't make it. But you can still escape. He hesitated. But, boom. The steam cleared. The monster stood there, its glowing eyes locked onto him. He had no time to argue. With one last look at patient 17, he ran through the door. It slammed shut behind him. Silence. For the first time, he could breathe. He collapsed to his knees, his heart hammering in his chest. He had no idea where he was, but it didn't matter. He was alive. But then, a voice. Mechanical. Cold. Patient 42 has escaped containment. Security override engaged. The walls around him shifted. He looked up, his stomach twisting. This wasn't freedom. This was a trap. The truth about the hospital. The walls shifted. Metallic panels groaned as they slid into place, sealing off the hallway behind him. His stomach twisted. This wasn't an escape route. It was a trap. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the air. Security lockdown initiated. Patient 42 will be retrieved. He cursed under his breath. His hands trembled as he scanned the corridor ahead. The lighting was dimmered here, flickering erratically, casting long, eerie shadows. He had to move. He sprinted down the passage, bare feet slapping against the cold metal floor. There had to be a way out. Then, footsteps. Heavy. Precise. Not human. He ducked into a side passage, pressing his back against the wall, his chest rising and falling in quick, panicked breaths. A moment later, two figures emerged from the far hallway. More of them. They looked human at first glance, tall, muscular, dressed in dark armor. But something was off. Their movements were too smooth, their posture too perfect, and their eyes glowed with the same eerie blue light. More test subjects, or something worse. They moved with cold efficiency, scanning the area, searching for him. He clenched his fists. He needed a distraction. Something, anything. His eyes darted upward. A loose vent cover. It was a long shot, but he had no choice. Carefully, he pulled himself up, ignoring the sharp sting in his muscles. He gritted his teeth and slipped into the vent. Darkness swallowed him. The metal groaned under his weight, but he stayed still, listening. Below, the two soldiers paused. Patient 42 was seen entering this sector, one said in a flat, robotic tone. Proceeding with a full scan, the other responded. There was a soft hum. His blood ran cold. They were scanning for life signs. He held his breath. Seconds passed. Negative. No signs of movement. Continue the search. The general wants him alive. His brow furrowed. The general. The soldiers moved away, their footsteps fading into the distance. He exhaled slowly. Too close. Carefully, he crawled forward through the vent. The metal was cold beneath him, but he forced himself to focus. He had one advantage. They were expecting him to be lost, but he was starting to understand this place, and he had a plan. The control room. After crawling through a maze of vents, he found himself above a large open chamber. It looked important. Rows of glowing consoles, massive screens, and dozens of floating holograms. But what made his heart stop were the people. Humans. Or at least, they used to be. They stood in glass pods, their bodies hooked up to strange machines. Their faces were twisted in pain, but their eyes were open, watching, waiting. A chill ran through his spine. He had thought he was alone in this nightmare. But there were so many more. He scanned the room. No guards, only a single floating drone monitoring the systems. This was it, his chance. Carefully, he loosened the vent cover and dropped down. The impact sent a jolt of pain up his legs, but he didn't have time to care. He rushed to the nearest console. The alien language on the screen made no sense, but one word stood out in English. Project Apex. He tapped the screen. More information appeared. Project Apex. Phase 3. Human DNA modification and enhancement. Subjects. High regeneration. Increased strength. Mental augmentation. Results. 68% success. 32% irreversible mutations. His stomach twisted. They weren't just experimenting. They were turning humans into weapons. The next screen made his blood run cold. Subjects currently under observation. 42. He clenched his jaw. 42. His number. His hand shook as he scrolled further. There was more. Some of the test subjects had already been released. His breath caught. Into the galaxy. He wasn't the first. There were others, humans who had been changed and sent back out into the stars. Some had been enhanced. Some had been twisted into monsters. But none of them knew the truth. His eyes darted across the screens. There had to be a way to shut this place down. Then, a sound behind him. He spun around. The floating drone had turned toward him. Its blue eye flickered. Alert. Alert. Unauthorized. Access DTECTE. A loud alarm blared. Damn it. Footsteps thundered toward the room. He had seconds. His eyes flicked to the screen one last time. A new message flashed. Emergency shutdown. Confirm. Yes. He slammed his hand against the screen. Boom. The lights flickered. The machines sparked. The glass pods burst open. Screams filled the air as the test subjects collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. The door slammed open. Guards. Soldiers. More of the glowing-eyed hybrids. He had seconds. He grabbed a loose metal rod from the ground. If he was going down, he wasn't going down alone. The human weapon. The alarm screamed. Red lights flashed across the control room as the glass pods shattered, spilling their half-human, half-experiment occupants onto the cold metal floor. He didn't have time to think. The guards were coming. Heavy boots thundered down the hallway. The glowing-eyed soldiers from before. Strong, fast, unnatural. And he had nothing but a metal rod. Think, damn it. His mind raced. They were expecting him to run. They were expecting him to be weak. So he wouldn't be. He gripped the rod tight, planted his feet, and waited. The first soldier stepped through the door, gun raised, expression blank. He moved first. With all the strength he had left, he swung. The metal rod slammed into the soldier's face. The impact sent a shockwave through his arm. Sparks flew. The soldier stumbled, but didn't fall. That wasn't normal. His heart pounded. They were stronger than human. The soldier recovered fast. Its head snapped up, blue glowing eyes locking onto him. A twisted, mechanical voice growled. Subject 42. Surrender now. Yeah. Not happening. He barely dodged the first punch. The second grazed his ribs. Felt like getting hit by a truck. Pain shot through his body. But he used the momentum. Rolled. Grabbed the fallen soldier's gun. No hesitation. He fired. The blue energy blast ripped through the soldier's chest. Sparks erupted. The glowing eyes flickered, then dimmed. The body hit the floor, lifeless. One down, but more were coming. The other test subjects, the prisoners, staggered to their feet. Some of them were confused, others angry. A woman with long, tangled hair grabbed a piece of broken machinery. Her arms looked different, stronger, too long, unnatural. They did this to us, she whispered. Her glowing eyes burned with rage. We kill them first. The others moved, like a pack of wolves. Faster, stronger, more than human. The guards didn't stand a chance. The hybrid soldier's offer. He didn't stop to watch the massacre. He ran. Through the chaos, through the screaming. His lungs burned, but he pushed forward. He needed to get out. He needed answers. The hallway ahead was blocked. More guards. But before they could fire, someone else stepped in. A man. No, not a man. He was tall, built like a soldier, but his eyes glowed with something different. Controlled. Calculating. Not empty like the others. And his uniform was different. The insignia on his chest wasn't alien. It was human. His voice was calm. Deep. Too calm. You're causing a lot of trouble, Subject 42. He froze. Who the hell are you? The soldier smiled. A survivor, just like you. His mind raced. This guy wasn't a prisoner. He wasn't a guard. He was something else. They turned you into one of them, he said through gritted teeth. The soldier raised an eyebrow. Not exactly. He took a slow step forward, casual, like they weren't standing in the middle of a battlefield. You're asking the wrong questions. The real question is, why did they let you wake up? He hesitated. That wasn't something he had considered. Think about it. The soldier continued. You weren't just floating in space. You were put there. You weren't supposed to die. You were supposed to return. His stomach twisted. Return to what? The soldier reached into his belt and tossed something toward him. Instinctively, he caught it. A keycard. Get to the hangar, the soldier said. Steal a ship. Get out of here. His fingers tightened around the card. Why are you helping me? The soldier smirked. Because I want to see what happens when you find out the truth. He didn't trust him, but he didn't have a choice. The race to the hangar. The base was falling apart. The alarms hadn't stopped. Somewhere in the distance, explosions shook the walls. He sprinted through the corridors, dodging fallen debris and unconscious bodies. The keycard in his grip burned against his palm. Then, a blast door ahead. The words Hangar Bay glowed faintly above it. He swiped the card. The door slid open. His breath caught. Inside, ships, rows of them. Sleek, advanced, alien-made. But there, one was different. Human design, Earth technology. A stolen ship. His pulse raced. This was it. This was his way out. Footsteps behind him. He turned. The hybrid soldier was there. You need to leave, the soldier said. Now. Why? What's happening? The soldier hesitated, just for a second. Then he said two words that sent ice through his veins. They're coming. Before he could ask whoa. Boom. The entire hangar shook. The far wall exploded inward. And through the smoke, through the debris, they arrived. Not aliens. Not soldiers. Something worse. Something not human anymore. They moved like shadows, eyes burning like fire. Twisted. Unnatural. Broken versions of what humans should be. And they were coming for him. The soldier pulled out a weapon, face grim. Run, 42. This is what they wanted. He didn't argue. He ran. The stolen human ship loomed ahead. He leaped inside, slammed his hand against the controls. The engines roared to life. Through the cockpit window, he saw the soldiers still standing there, fighting, holding back the monsters. The ship's system flashed a warning. Unknown coordinates set. Engage. He didn't care where it went. He hit the button. The stars blurred. The ship jumped into hyperspace, and behind him, the base. The truth, the nightmare, vanished. The final battle. The ship lurched forward, its engines roaring as it tore through the black void of space. His hands trembled over the controls. He had no idea where he was going. The console screen flashed, UNKNONCGO or DINATES. Didn't matter. Anywhere was better than that hellhole. He took a shaky breath and glanced back. The alien base was gone, swallowed by the darkness of hyperspace. But the image was burned into his mind, the twisted experiments, the glowing-eyed hybrids, the hybrid soldier fighting for his life. And the worst part, he still didn't know what they had done to him. The warning message. The ship's system beeped. A new transmission. His stomach tightened. Who the hell was contacting him? He hesitated, then tapped the screen. A distorted voice crackled through the speakers. Patient 42. You are not safe. His breath caught in his throat. The hybrid soldier. Static. Then. They will come for you. They always do. He swallowed hard. Who? Who are they? Silence. Then, a single phrase. Not all of us survived the transformation. The message cut out. He clenched his jaw. Damn it. What did that mean? Was he turning into one of them? His fingers dug into his palms. No, he couldn't think about that now. Focus. Find a way to survive. He turned his attention back to the ship's controls. Then, something blinked on the radar. His pulse stopped. The hunters arrive. A single dot on the screen. No, not one. Dozens. The ship's warning system blared. Main hostiles, high-speed approach. His fingers flew across the console. The radar lit up with red signals. His heart pounded. They had found him. Ships materialized from hyperspace behind him. Sleek, black, alien-looking. They weren't from the same species as the doctors. These ships were something else, something worse. A new message appeared on the screen. Surrender or be destroyed. He stared at the words, his blood running cold. Who were they? More of the lab's people, the ones who had already been released into the galaxy, or something even bigger. Didn't matter. He wasn't going back. He gritted his teeth, gripping the controls. Fight or die. The dogfight. Engines roared. The enemy ships closed in fast. Too fast. The first laser blast streaked past him, lighting up the dark void of space. He dodged. The ship's frame groaned as he pulled into a hard spin, avoiding a barrage of glowing plasma. But he wasn't a pilot. He was running on instinct, adrenaline, pure survival. Another blast clipped the side of his ship. Warning sirens screamed. "Hold together, you piece of junk," he growled, forcing the ship into a dive. The enemy ships followed. He scanned the system, desperate for an advantage. Then he saw it, a nearby asteroid field. A plan formed in his head. A reckless, stupid plan. He gummed the thrusters and plunged into the field. Through the fire, rocks spun wildly in every direction. Massive asteroids drifted through the void, colliding and shattering into debris. He wove through them, the ship shuddering under the intense maneuvers. Behind him, the hunters followed. They were faster, more advanced. But speed wasn't everything. He ducked under a massive asteroid, threading the ship through a narrow gap. The first hunter ship wasn't so lucky. Boom! It crashed into a spinning rock and exploded in a fiery blast. He grinned. One down. More followed, dodging and weaving, but he forced them to make mistakes. Another slammed into debris. Another got clipped by a stray asteroid. The numbers were thinning, but not fast enough. Then, a warning flashed on his screen. Fuel low. HFY RIV unavailable. His stomach twisted. No, not now. He needed a miracle. Then, his ship's system detected something. A large structure in the distance. A space station. He scanned it. No identifying marks. No signals. Abandoned. Or something worse. Didn't matter. He had no other choice. With the last bit of fuel, he gunned the engines toward the station. Behind him, the hunters still chased, but they weren't shooting anymore. That's when he knew. He wasn't escaping. He was being herded. The truth revealed. The station loomed ahead, its surface dark and lifeless. Massive, ancient, silent. He angled toward it, his ship barely holding together. A docking bay opened, as if it had been waiting for him. His gut twisted. Something was very wrong. But before he could react, his ship lost all power. Everything shut down. No engines, no weapons, no control. His ship was being pulled in. The hunters didn't follow. They just hovered outside, watching. His heart pounded. They had never meant to kill him. They wanted him to go here. The station swallowed him whole. The docking bay doors slammed shut. Total darkness. Silence. Then, a voice. Calm. Familiar. Cold. "Welcome home, patient 42. His breath stopped. He knew that voice. It was his own. Humanity strikes back. The dark station loomed around him, cold and silent. The sound of his own voice, familiar yet alien, still echoed in his ears. He stood frozen in the dimly lit hangar, the silence pressing down on him like a weight. "Welcome home, patient 42. He stared into the shadows, his breath shallow. What did that mean? And then, out of the stillness, lights flickered to life. One by one, Harsh white beams illuminated the cavernous room, revealing walls lined with ancient machines. Some were sleek and smooth, their designs alien, while others looked cobbled together, as if taken from different places. Human ships, alien crafts, and something else entirely. A voice spoke again, this time smoother, more confident. Patient 42. You are part of the project's final phase. Your journey ends here. His fists clenched. Who are you? From the shadows, a figure emerged. It looked human, or at least close enough. The man was tall, his features sharp, his eyes glowing faintly blue. But there was a strange, unearthly symmetry to him. His movements were too smooth, his posture too perfect. I am Patient Zero, the man said, his voice calm, almost comforting. The first to undergo the process. The one who perfected it. Process. Perfected what? Humanity's evolution, Patient Zero said, gesturing to the towering machines around them. We were chosen to rise above the limits of our fragile bodies, to become something more. You are the culmination of years of work, the final piece of the puzzle. He took a step back. No, I'm just a guy. I didn't ask for any of this. I don't want to be your experiment. Patient Zero tilted his head, studying him. You misunderstand. You were not chosen by chance. The project requires the best of humanity. Those who are adaptable, resilient. You survived every test we put you through, even the ones you don't remember. His chest tightened. What had they done to him? What was buried in the memories he couldn't recall? This isn't about me, he snapped. You're trying to turn humans into weapons. Not weapons, Patient Zero replied, his voice calm, almost kind. Protectors. We face a galaxy full of dangers. The experiments allowed us to harness the best traits of humanity. Our strength, our endurance, our ingenuity, and enhance them. You're not a victim, Patient 42. You're humanity's future. Rebellion ignites. The word sent a chill through him. He knew Patient Zero believed what he was saying, but all he saw were the horrors back at the lab. The test subjects twisted beyond recognition, the hybrid soldiers who had lost their humanity. And he knew one thing. He couldn't let this continue. You think I'm going to help you, he said, his voice steady. You think I'm just going to go along with this madness? Patient Zero smiled faintly, as if he'd heard this all before. You can't run from what you are. The sooner you accept it, the sooner you'll see the truth. And then, together, we'll. He moved. Before Patient Zero could finish, he charged. His body felt lighter, stronger than he expected, as if the changes had made him faster. Patient Zero reacted quickly, their hands meeting in a brutal clash. But this time, he wasn't fighting a guard or a mindless hybrid. Patient Zero was just as fast, just as strong. The room echoed with the sound of blows. Metal cracked. Machines sparked as they stumbled into the equipment. Patient Zero's calm expression faded, replaced by one of surprise. You're further along than I thought, he said, his voice strained. The process has already begun. No, he growled, driving his elbow into Patient Zero's side. You don't get to control me. A console exploded nearby. Sparks flew, lighting up the room. And then, from the walls, something began to stir. Other pods opened. Other figures stepped out. More hybrids, more experiments. Some looked barely human, their bodies augmented beyond recognition. Patient Zero smiled again. Do you see? They'll follow me. And you'll join them soon enough. The hybrids started moving toward him. But before they could close the gap, a massive explosion rocked the station. Humanity fights back. The entire room shuddered. He stumbled, barely catching himself. The hybrids paused, looking around. Another explosion. This time, the walls cracked. Pieces of the ceiling fell. The lights flickered again, this time dimming. Then he heard it, a distant roar of engines. He turned toward the source. Through a jagged hole torn in the side of the station, he saw them. Human ships, sleek and armed to the teeth, the vessels swarmed in like a pack of wolves. They had come for him, and for them. The station's alarms screamed, warning of external threats. Patient Zero's calm demeanor finally faltered. "What is this?" Patient Zero demanded, spinning toward the console. This was not part of the plan. He smiled grimly. "Guess you underestimated us." As the human ships began to fire on the station, he turned and ran. This was his chance. If they could get him off the station, if they could destroy this place, maybe, just maybe, he could stop whatever this project was. The final choice. But as he ran, a thought gnawed at him. He wasn't normal anymore. Patient Zero had been right about that. He had changed. Could he really go back to Earth, knowing what he'd become? Could he lead a normal life, knowing there were others like him still out there? The station groaned, sparks flying as it began to break apart. The human ships had done their job. The place was collapsing. And still, he didn't know if the war was over or if it was only just beginning.